Alright, we're going to try to get this thing wrapped up. So the next thing we need to do is to set our views, which is going to get into setting up cameras. And I think I've gone over this before in Rhino, but I'm going to go over it again because it never fails. You come to a student's desk and they just haven't really thought through what they're going to show me. So in this Rhino view, the default camera is 50 millimeters. And in Revit, they'll give you a similar type of situation where it's pretty good for doing diagrams, but it's not very good for anything else as far as looking at architecture. So in this point of view, in Revit, we're going to start to create a view that's down here on the street looking at the building. But you can see in Rhino World, and we'll see similar effect in Revit, you don't really see much of the world. In fact, you don't really see architecture at all. So to change that, all you need to do is really simple. Everyone should do this. When they're designing, they should set up views that are architectural, that they at least can go back to, so they can look at the world like an architect would look at the world, like a person would look at the world, and not as if everything is an axonometric. So you can see immediately space starts to expand, and we can start to see as if we're actually on the street. And as we move close to the building, we see most of the building, and we can start to give a lot better kind of understanding of kind of how we would feel and be situated looking at this piece of architecture, floating box. Okay, that's Rhino World, but we're in Revit. So in Revit, what we're going to do is we're going to set up a camera. The first thing we want to do is define, we'll want to go to the first floor level and set that as the work plane. And then we'll go to that first floor level. Actually, don't see the context, and maybe you have to go down here and turn it back on. Alright, and we're going to set up a camera. So go to View, 3D View, and Camera, and we'll set it right here on the corner looking toward the building. And then it will open up automatically a view port. We will go ahead and once again, it looks like we have to turn on the context. Alright, so you can see again we're same thing that we saw in Rhino happens in Revit. We can barely see the world. It's no good. If you don't change this, you'll get dinged in your grade. You should get dinged in your grade every time you do this if you don't actually start to expand the frame. Revit unfortunately does not have a property for the camera that just lets you change the lens. I don't know why in a building information modeling program they don't have a parameter for that, but they don't. So you have to actually manually do this, and it's kind of full of you doing maybe things that aren't to your benefit, because you can tend to stretch these way too far to the point where the world gets really warped. You can start to see this thing really getting collapsing as far as the parallax. So one thing that you can do to kind of make sure that you're not going too far is you would go back to, say, that level 1 view, and if you still have the camera selected, you'll see its cone of vision. Before, the cone of vision was very small, and now it's expanded. This one on the right is probably going almost a little too far. This one on the left is about right. So you'll just have to tweak it. If you don't see the camera, like there I clicked off of it, you don't see the camera. What you do to find the camera again is, one, we should rename this. so we know what it is. So this will be street corner. And what you do if you don't see it in that view is you go to the view, and then you right click over the camera and you say show camera, and it shows up. Pretty simple. And that allows you to actually move and drag the camera's position and the target. And if you need to look up, you can change that by either changing the location of the target. Let's go back into the camera view just to see what our camera looks like. If we go into the properties, we can look up by just changing the target elevation. Now I don't recommend doing this because, as you'll see, the parallax of the buildings around you really start to collapse in, and it starts to get this kind of fun house look to it. And as you look higher and higher up, it gets even worse and worse. So I tend to make my cameras the exact same elevation, eye elevation and target elevation. I also tend to move the camera down. Professional photographers use the trick of getting lower to make the architecture seem bigger and more impressive, and I would follow the same strategy. So as I said, this line might be about too much, and this one's about right. The other thing you can look at is where the far clip offset is. So as you change this, you're going to see less and less of the world. So you can kind of control how much you see of the world by shrinking that or growing that, or just turning it off if you really just want to see to infinite space. So it's up to you. But we'll see that this looks about right, and we'll go ahead and turn on shadows and see what that looks like. Starts to give it some depth, and that's pretty good for this view. And then let's set up another view we'll get two more views, one that's going to be kind of highlighting the liquid wall, and the other one will be highlighting the panel. So you go through a similar process, only it's a little bit trickier when you get close to something. So let's go to, say, our views. We'll go to level 2. Make sure that all the elements we want to see are shown. Okay, and then let's set up another view, and we'll set it up kind of looking right at one of these panels. Alright, the same thing is happening here, where it's really, the cone of vision is really small. So again, it's kind of a drag that you have to do this every time, but that's the only way to kind of get a view really to a point where it's actually useful and showing the information that you want to show. You can, if you get a camera set up just right, you can duplicate that camera. That may be the way to go, so that you don't have to keep dragging these, and then you just have to move it meticulously into place. The way that you would do that would be to go and change this elevation, drag it close through the building, through the plans, and showing camera. I am going to also show you though here that you can use this orbit tool. If you don't see this specific tool, you see something that's a little bit more dumbed down, just go under this triangle and you can see the full navigation. You may have this mini full navigation or any of these other ones showing. I'm just going to use the full navigation wheel. You can drag it in, and the first thing you want to do is center by clicking the center and then finding like some point, typically on what you're wanting to focus on. and that'll allow you to orbit around that center. So you can kind of work on kind of best locations for your camera and kind of get the most dramatic effect. Alright, so I'm just going to pan now down. So now I can see kind of each corner of this panel, and that looks pretty good. So let's go ahead and rename that. This will be a liquid wall. And the other thing, you can see that you're starting to cut things off, so I might go into its properties and turn off this active clip, the far clip active. Alright, now if you don't see, this looks perfect because I can see into the building. There's kind of floor plates floating here. If you don't see those, it means that your mask is still on, so you might need to kind of so this would simulate that. What it means is that that mask is still on, so you'd go through, and if you can do it like this, you can get through and finally find just that, and then hide it, and then you'll see that also this one's on, and you can hide that. So you definitely want to see through the liquid wall into the space, so make sure that happens. Okay, that view's set up. Let's do a similar one for the for our closed panel system. This might be a good time to show how you would do that camera duplicate. So I'm just going to roll over that. I'm going to duplicate that view. I'll call this, I don't have a really great name for this one. We'll just call this the closed panel. You might come up with a trippy name for it. And then I'll go to level 2 and I'll show that camera. And then I'll just move that over and its target over. And let's go to that closed panel and see what we see. Okay, it's a little bit, it's not in the right elevation, so I can start to change its properties. Here to be, I don't know, 30, 45, let's go right in the middle, so it'd be like more like, I don't know, 52, 52. Yeah, that's pretty good. And then I'll orbit, center something, zoom out a little bit, orbit around. Pan a little bit. That looks pretty good. Turn on the shadows. I forgot to do that on the other one. Alright, so this is where we might want to go into some settings. I'll do that in the next video.